up, you guys? It's Simon. Welcome back to my channel. So you guys seem to really like my last video where I spoke about my art-related opinions, so I thought we'd do it again. But this time we're discussing the oh-so-controversial topic of tracing. So, on the off chance that you're new to the art community or just that you've never heard of tracing before, essentially the concept of tracing is, whether that be digitally or traditionally, tracing over the lines of a photograph, painting, or other form of artwork onto a separate canvas. Now that we know what tracing is, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. I don't think tracing is all that bad. To a certain extent, there's a line that can and often is crossed between tracing to learn and tracing to profit. In my opinion, tracing can be an incredibly helpful tool to artists when they are trying to learn anatomy or trying to learn to break things down in general. For example, a few years ago on Tumblr, I ran into a method that was created to help artists understand how to draw things that they haven't necessarily drawn before or just generally having trouble breaking down. I believe the example that they used was like with a crab. First, they asked you to draw a crab from your imagination. Next, you had to find a reference image and trace over the image completely, like every single little detail. And then you hide the layer that you've just traced or move on to a new piece of paper if you're working traditionally, of course. Then you were instructed to trace over the image again, but this time only breaking it down into its basic shapes. After moving on to the next layer or paper, of course, again, this time you were asked not to trace and instead to look at the image and break down the shapes again without tracing directly on top. Finally, you were asked to hide the original reference image and all previous sketches. By the end, it should have been easier for you to remember all of the shapes that you've drawn and all of the little details that formed those shapes into the image that you wanted to create. And personally for me, it really did help. I know I personally have never had to draw a crab before. I've never had a reason to draw a crab, but I figured I might as well go with something I am completely unfamiliar with to see if that method really did work. And by the end of it, yeah, I was totally able to draw a crab, obviously throughout all those steps, and then by the end, you were supposed to draw it from imagination again, and it worked. Like, it literally looked like a crab, and it was really nice, and I was very much pleased with it. So yeah, all of that started with just a little bit of tracing. Another example might simply be tracing over an anatomy model, trying to memorize the locations and the shapes of muscles or bones. So I believe it was in my last video about, I believe it was like my sketching process or something. Bit of a stumbly video, but I did mention in parts of it talking about muscle memory, and the only way to build up muscle memory is by drawing the same shapes repeatedly to the point where you're then able to recreate that from your imagination because your hands kind of already know what to do by that point. But yeah, like I said, the only way to build muscle memory is to draw it repeatedly. And the last thing you want to happen when you're working with muscle memory is essentially like learning like, I guess, a brain shorthand for anatomy that looks incorrect. So a great way to build up that muscle memory is by tracing over those 3D models or anatomy figures, whatever it is that you want to use personally. Tracing over those multiple times will help you build up that muscle memory, and then you'll be able to stylize it however it is that you want to in the future. So you may or may not be thinking, hey Simon, all of this sounds really good and helpful. What is the issue here? Well, the issue arises when artists start using tracing to profit from other people's work. I'm sure if you watch any art commentary channel on YouTube, you'll have seen at least one like X Artist the Demon Tracer video, which we will get into here in a little bit. But for now, tracing is good to a certain extent because, of course, it really is a tool to help you learn. There are plenty of videos talking about how you can improve your artwork just by tracing, but the issue is when artists start to rely on tracing, or in some cases, rely on tracing so much that they present works that they've traced as their own original work. So, when you trace over a piece of work, whether it be a reference or a photo or an illustration from an artist that that you admire, you should always present it as such. Present it as practice, as something that you've traced, as a study, but never as your own work. And if you're tracing from an artist, please ensure that the artist has given permission for others to do so. A lot of artists will state on Instagram in their bio that they don't allow tracing of their artwork. If someone stated that they don't like or want their artwork being traced, then you'd better move on to someone who approves of doing so, even if you make changes to the original work. So, for example, I'm a big fan of Sonia What is wrong with my brain today? I'm a big fan of Sonia Stegeman's work. She's a really good YouTuber. I would highly recommend you check her channel out. Her art style, so good, so pretty. Goals. But let's say I trace over one of her pieces and change it a little bit to fit a different aesthetic. I can't post that to Instagram and act as if that's my own work, even though I made changes to it, because the baseline of the image was created using someone else's hard work and effort. What I can do is post it to Instagram, explicitly state that it was a traced study of her work with a few changes that I made as practice. I also want to mention like a really good example of how people can profit off of tracing, and like really, like, I don't want to present this as like, I don't want anybody to hear this and go, wow, that's such a great idea, like that's so smart. I want everybody to understand that this is a fundamentally horrible thing to do, and you should never be like this person that I'm about to mention. But a big issue that happens with tracing a lot in the art community is people like, you may have heard, Blue Potion Co. Blue Potion Co. traces from official artworks, she traces from fan artworks, but essentially she like has a lot of products that she basically compiled a bunch of different like tracing things together. Like she does a lot of like I guess you could call them mashups technically, of a bunch of different like Pokemon and like game console type things, but a lot of the Pokemon in those images are traced, and obviously she profits from these. These are like enamel pins and buttons and like keychains and stuff like that. Like she's genuinely monetarily profiting off of other people's work, stuff that she did not solely create. And a lot of the artists have either not given her permission to trace, or have no idea that they're being traced from. So she's profiting off of them monetarily while they have no idea or have explicitly told her not to, or to remove the products that she's monetizing that are their own work. So yeah, she also is really good at like blocking people who talk about it. So if I end up blocked by her, I guess I'm doing something right. But yeah, you never ever want to sell somebody else's artwork, even if you, like her, compiled it into something different, colored it differently, only used the line work, and then like changed a bunch of other different things about it. It doesn't matter if the baseline was not created by you. If it was created using somebody else's artwork, you do not get to then sell it and make a profit off of it, especially if they've explicitly said that they don't want their work being traced. So yeah, that's another huge issue if you're profiting, whether it be from, social media attention or profiting directly through a monetary gain. Never, ever, ever do something like that. So yeah, but there is also, gosh, I'm sorry guys. This also ties into artists that rely too heavily on tracing. So let's say you're creating an artwork, maybe something with dynamic hand movements. You're trying hard, you're setting your reference, and you just can't get the hand right. Instead of tracing over the image and trying to break it down, you simply trace the contour lines. And if you don't know what contour lines are, they're basically outlines. So you're left with a perfectly outlined hand, exactly the way you want it to look. Although the hand is a small part of the illustration, you're still profiting off of another person's work. Not only that, but you didn't learn anything about the hand that you were trying to illustrate. So, when the time comes to draw it again, you're simply going to have the same amount of an issue, the same hard time, because rather than studying that hand motion and its shapes, you just traced it and went on your way. So, in summary, how do I feel about tracing? It's okay, as long as you're simply learning and not profiting off of other people's work. Tracing can be a good tool if used properly and with the intention to grow your skills as an artist. Like I mentioned before, if you're struggling to draw something and you trace it, and you leave it at that and you don't come back and try to break it down, you're just going to have the same issue over and over again. You're going to be having to trace the same thing when you could just be learning how to draw that thing, and it will really stunt your growth as an artist if you're constantly having to do that, especially if you're doing stylized artworks. When it comes to like having a different style, that like I know for me, I try to do like kind of a mix between, I want to say it's a little more anime, what is wrong with me, anime than semi-realism, but I do try to lean a little bit towards the semi-realism aspect. So when it comes to using reference images, I can follow them pretty closely, and understand how to stylize things a little bit easier. But if you're working from like, let's say, the classic like CalArts Disney style, tracing your reference image will not help you, because your character probably even has like 4 fingers instead of 5, and like has little nuggets instead of fully detailed palms and fingers. That's not going to help you. It's not going to teach you how to stylize it from a different perspective, or anything like that. So definitely do not rely too heavily on tracing. Tracing should exclusively be used as a tool to break things down and to understand how an artwork was created. So yeah, that being said, how do you guys feel about tracing? Do you agree with me, or does your opinion differ in some way? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. As always, I would love to give a big shout out to my patrons, Elise Thompson, Duran, Mandy, Schleeps, Puppy Paws, and Created by Twins. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for continuing to support me every single month. A little bit of announcement. Obviously, we are in our way of February. January is past, which means that the past January rewards will soon be up on the Etsy shop. I will definitely let you guys know on my community page when that happens. Obviously, like I mentioned before, it's a little bit more expensive to get them off of Etsy than it is to get them through the Patreon bundle, obviously, because that's part of the perk. But yeah, if you guys want to purchase the items individually or as a set, you can go on to Etsy very soon. But obviously, there are new rewards for February's Patreon. The theme this month is chocolate covered strawberries, because Valentine's Day. And the theme's about to be real cute. I'm really excited about this month's illustrations. They are going to be super adorable, very sweet looking. One thing I will mention, I'm planning on having the printable be a Valentine's Day card. So if you want to, obviously be able to print that out, and give out Valentines that have my art on them, you will soon be able to do that. Obviously for as little as $1, that's where the printables start. So if you want to help support me, please do. Please go check out the Patreon. But if you can't monetarily support me, obviously I totally understand. We are in kind of like a crisis right now, obviously with the thing that shall not be named. Things are really difficult right now, so if all you can do to support me is watch my videos or check out, all my other social media and like and comment and share things, I totally understand that, and I really appreciate you guys, like especially you guys watching right now. I love you guys. You are literally the best. I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.